On the 19th of November 1965 at approximately 2 p.m. in the Grand Ballroom of the Cherry Plaza Hotel in Orlando, Florida, Governor Haydon Burns sat between the brothers Disney, Walt and Roy, during a press conference. Opening the remarks, Governor Burns stated, "Walt Disney will bring a new world of entertainment, pleasure, and economic development to the state of Florida." This was, of course, the announcements for the plans that would become the Walt Disney World Resort. It would be 6 years before the Magic Kingdom was completed, and the creative mind behind it, Walt Disney, would succumb to lung cancer before the gates ever opened. But this 27,000-acre campus would soon become known as the happiest place on Earth and would revolutionize the way the world vacations. In order to understand the creation of Disney World, we must go back 10 years and travel west nearly 2,500 miles to Anaheim, California. On July the 17th, 1955, Walt Disney swung open the doors to his very own theme park, Disneyland, with the dedication, "To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world." It's often said that the idea for a themed park for kids and adults alike to enjoy came to Disney while watching his daughter on the merry-go-round in Los Angeles' Griffith Park. Whether that's true or not, after a 1948 visit with his family to Henry Ford's Greenfield Village in Dearborn, Michigan, which featured Main Street and steamboat rides, he wrote a letter to his production designer Dick Kessley, in which Disney talked of a park with a railroad station, town hall, restaurants, opera house, movie theater, magic shop, and carnival section. From that letter to completion, it only took 7 years for Disneyland to become reality. The original home was going to be in Burbank, California, next door to Disney Studios, to be situated on an 8-acre piece of property on Riverside Drive. However, it soon became clear, as plans finalized, that this tract of lands would not hold Mickey Mouse. Additionally, the city of Burbank wasn't too keen on having a carnival atmosphere in their town. The city council turned down the proposal in 1952 and demanded extreme modifications. So Walt Disney turned his sights 37 miles south to Orange County. Bringing science and economics into his decision-making process, Walt Disney had hired Harrison Price of the Stanford Research Institute to determine what area in the temperate climate of Southern California held the largest potential for growth, accessibility, and profitability. Price proposed Anaheim, California. With this suggestion, Disney bought up 160 acres of mostly rural land filled with citrus and walnut groves in the area. Construction on Disneyland began on July 16, 1954. Price would go on to become a Disney legend, helping to access and pick over 150 locations in which to build Disney properties, not to mention being hired by SeaWorld, Six Flags, and several World's Fairs for that exact same purpose. In 1999, Variety called him the Dean of Recreation Economics. Going back to Disneyland, it would cost $17 million to build, about $151 million today. It would also take 1 year and 1 day from beginning of construction to complete. It was only a short time from when the gates first opened in Anaheim, and not to particularly rave reviews, that Disney realized he had made a few errors. First of all, comprehensive market surveys revealed that only a small percentage of Disneyland visitors, about 5%, came from east of the Mississippi. While this was perfectly fine if Walt Disney wanted a regional park, this was far from ideal for someone with national aspirations. At the time, 75% of the country's population lived on the East Coast. Additionally, it was also said that Disney felt like he miscalculated the land speculation that became rampant in Anaheim once Disneyland opened. He had failed to acquire the land around his park, so in Disney's absence came businesses, landowners, and prospectors who didn't meet Disney's high standards. He believed that these individual owners brought down the value of his magnificent park, and of course, owning and controlling the land around the area would have just been good business. Thus, as early as 1959, Walt Disney, emboldened by the ultimate success of Disneyland, set out to do it again, but this time with a few differences. This new park would be on the East Coast, Disney would have complete control of the land around the original park, and it would be the biggest theme park the world had ever seen. Before Walt settled on Orlando as his new home, there were several other candidates. Among them were St. Louis and Washington, D.C., New Jersey, and the Canadian side of Niagara Falls. Disney ultimately didn't go with these sites for various reasons, ranging from the obvious, weather restrictions, lack of available land, competition from other attractions, particularly in the DC area, to the much more thought out. Disney explained all of this in 1966. "I don't like ocean sites because of the beach crowd and also the ocean limits approach. If you'll notice, Disneyland at Anaheim is like a hub with freeways converging on it from all sides. I like it better inland. The other reason Walt chose Orlando was because the local governments were willing to help keep things quiet about his plans. Partly out of practicality, partly out of paranoia, and partly a money-saving technique, Disney's overall approach in site selection and land acquisition was described by biographer Bob Thomas as a 2-year cloak-and-dagger saga of deception, false identities, and dummy corporations. Disney and his colleagues began surveying the lands in 1963. They found the land to be full of pine forests, cattle ranches, citrus groves, and swamps. In fact, it was known as Reedy Creek Basin, a drainage shed. But Disney loved it for the reasons already described, and as well for the planned and partially built interstates that led directly into this region. It also helped that McCoy Air Force Base was nearby, which would become Orlando International Airport. On top of everything else that went into it, Disney employed real estate agents across the region who weren't even allowed to know who their client was to negotiate for the purchase of individual pieces of land. Since none of the landowners, ranchers, and farmers knew that these agents were working in concert and the land itself wasn't worth a lot to them as farmland, deals were constructed for as little as $100 an acre. To further the secrecy and toe the line of legality, dummy corporations were set up to be used in the transactions with names like Latin American Development and Management Corporation and Reedy Creek Ranch Corporation. All in all, they bought 27,000 acres of land, twice the size of Manhattan, for $5 million, or an average of $182 per acre. Soon people started noticing what was happening, but no one really had a clue as to who was doing it or why. In fact, the Orlando Sentinel ran a piece with the headline, "We know we'll get it, but we don't know what." Rumors floated that NASA, the Rockefellers, perhaps even Howard Hughes were behind this massive land grab. Soon enough, though, the Orlando Sentinel dug and good journalism won out. Well, at least eventually. There are rumors that Walt Disney himself approached the newspaper and begged, pleaded, and maybe even bribed them to keep the identity of the buyer out of the paper until he was ready to announce. He allegedly insisted that if the story was leaked, the Orlando project would die, causing Central Florida to miss out on a potential tourist boom. Nevertheless, the truth began to leak out. On May 20th, 1965, the Sentinel ran that the land is being purchased for a second East Coast Disneyland attraction, but immediately called the declaration into question by saying Disney denied all of this during a recent trip to Cape Kennedy. Said the Orlando Sentinel in an article about the history of the region in 1993, Disney badly lied in telling the newspaper he was spending $50 million to expand Disneyland in California and was not interested in another such venture at that time. Finally, there were too many signs and clues to hide it any longer. At the insistence of reporter Emily Bava, the Sentinel ran the headline, "We say mystery industry is Disney." At the blessing of Walt Disney, Governor Burns confirmed this to be true on October 25th, 1965. 3 weeks later, Burns, joined by Roy and Walt Disney, made the official announcement. On November 2nd, 1966, Walt Disney was diagnosed with lung cancer from years of chain smoking. The disease was so far along that within 45 days he passed away. He never saw Disney World completed. Roy, his brother and the CEO of Disney Studios, postponed his retirement to oversee the construction of Walt Disney World Resort, named in honor of his brother. The park was officially dedicated on October 25th, 1971, 6 years to the day after Governor Burns confirmed that Disney World was coming to Orlando. In the dedication ceremony, as well as written on the plaque that now sits at the entrance of the Magic Kingdom, Roy Disney declared, "Walt Disney World is a tribute to the philosophy and life of Walter Elias Disney, and to the talents, the dedication, and the loyalty of the entire Disney organization that made Walt Disney's dream come true. May Walt Disney World bring joy and inspiration and new knowledge to all who come to this happy place, a Magic Kingdom where the young at heart of all ages can laugh and play and learn together." And now for a bonus fact. As Walt Disney laid on his deathbed suffering from lung cancer, the story goes, later confirmed by Kurt Russell, that Disney did as any of us would optimally do if about to die. He scribbled on a piece of paper the name Kurt Russell. Allegedly, his last documented words of such, many have speculated what this could have meant, including the famous actor himself, Kurt Russell, who in a 2007 appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live said, "It's true, I don't know what to make of that. I was taken into his office one time after he died and I was shown that." Russell was a child actor at the time for Disney, having just signed a 10-year contract with the studio. The very paper with Russell's name on it supposedly still lies on Disney's office desk today, along with many other papers that Disney had written on. The fact that there are several papers there has also led some to note we can't actually definitively know if that was the last thing or not. Whatever the case, on the note of his office, a small but fully functional one-bedroomed office was what Walt used often as a workspace and a place to watch his dream come to life, sitting above the firehouse house on Main Street in Disneyland. Walt loved the little apartment because it allowed him to watch the people in Joy's Park. There were no pictures of him or his family in there, save for one picture from the National Geographic. To this day, the apartment is still there, even with the same papers he was last working on lying on his desk. Everything left mostly as it was, as a sort of shrine, though some of the original furniture has been replaced. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Do not forget to subscribe. Brand new videos just like this every day of the week. And as always, thank you for watching.